Let's drop the nostalgia goggles. For all the glitz and glamour, Golden Age Hollywood was obsessed with one thing: controlling women's bodies and stories. But what happens when a star's appetite, real or rumored, threaten that power? Tonight, we dig into the notorious nymphomaniac whispers that studios tried to erase. Which screen legends were hounded by rumors that almost eclipsed their talent? And why did these stories refuse to stay buried? Let's open the case files. Clara Bow was the original It Girl, a wild child of the jazz age whose very presence seemed to electrify every frame. Off-screen, Bow's refusal to play by Hollywood's rules triggered a tidal wave of rumors. She danced on tabletops, swam naked at parties, and shrugged off scandal like yesterday's news. The tabloids, hungry for any sign of weakness, painted her as the ultimate nymphomaniac, claiming she had dozens, even hundreds of lovers, including studio executives, athletes, and actresses alike. Paramount's PR machine worked overtime, sometimes spinning Clara's free spirit as quirky charm, other times scrambling to bury stories that threatened box office gold. Yet behind the headlines was a woman shaped by trauma, a rough Brooklyn childhood, an abusive mother, and a desperate need to be loved. The industry devoured her, using rumors of insatiable desire as both sword and shield, proof of her magnetism, but also justification for shaming and sidelining her. When mental health struggles surfaced, the press pounced, turning her exhaustion into evidence of moral decay. In truth, Clara was a casualty of Hollywood's obsession with controlling women's sexuality, punished for living as loudly as the men around her. Her real scandal? Daring to claim the same freedoms Tinseltown pretended to celebrate? Tallula Bankhead. Tallula Bankhead was a one-woman hurricane, smoking, swearing, drinking, and by her own admission, loving with abandon. Unlike so many of her peers, Bankhead didn't try to outrun the rumors. She grabbed them and set them on fire. Stories of her supposed nymphomania were legendary, including jaw-dropping boasts of having more lovers than hot dinners. Journalists tripped over themselves to outdo one another with tales of Tallula's conquests. Men, women, even the odd politician or royal. But here's the trick. Bankhead used the hysteria as a spotlight, making herself unmissable and unmanageable. Studios alternately exploited her notoriety for ticket sales and wrung their hands about her bad influence on America's youth. She reveled in the contradiction, once quipping, "My father warned me about men and booze, but he never mentioned a word about women and cocaine." Yet the gossip was always a double-edged sword. Her image fueled her legend, but also shut doors, especially as the production code and public morality cracked down in the late 1930s. Still, Bankhead refused to apologize. She knew that in Hollywood the only sin greater than desire was honesty. Her real act of rebellion? Turning rumor into power and scandal into survival. Jean Harlo. Jean Harlo, the original blonde bombshell, was Hollywood's golden ticket to box office gold in the early 1930s. On screen, she radiated a playful, brazen sexuality that was decades ahead of its time. Off-screen, the myth of Harlo as an uncontrollable seductress grew ever wilder. Studio fixers whispered about trysts with co-stars, secret affairs with married men, and a sex drive so fierce it scared the pants off Hollywood's biggest names. MGM's publicity department worked around the clock to keep the rumors at bay, fearing for both her reputation and their profits. But for every denied headline, another would surface, painting Harlo as a cautionary tale of excess. The truth was far more complicated. Jean struggled with domineering husbands, studio exploitation, and profound loneliness. Her rapid-fire rise to stardom left her isolated, and the rumors, often started by jealous rivals or frustrated executives, became a kind of prison. When Harlo died tragically young at just 26, Hollywood didn't mourn the woman, but canonized the myth. Today, those old stories of nymphomania look less like scandal and more like a desperate bid to control a woman whose power both thrilled and threatened an industry built on illusion. Mae West. Mae West was the original master of sex appeal on her own terms. Her wit was as sharp as her curves were famous. Her double entendre could outfox any censor. Yet with every provocative joke and sultry performance, West attracted the wrong kind of attention. Rumors that she was addicted to pleasure, that she propositioned her co-stars, and that her private life was even wilder than her scripts. The Nymphomaniac label clung to her, fueled by the outrage of church groups and the glee of gossip columnists. Studios loved the ticket sales but loathed the headaches, especially when the Hays Code came down hard on any hint of indecency. But West had a secret weapon: self-control. She mocked the rumors, flipping the narrative with every comeback. "I used to be Snow White, but I drifted." As the industry tried to muzzle her, she only grew more outrageous, transforming scandal into lasting celebrity. By the time Hollywood realized it couldn't tame her, West had become a cultural icon. Her legacy? She proved that a woman's power didn't have to come from permission, but from owning every story they tried to use against her. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton's life reads like a Hollywood morality play with a tragic twist. A stunning starlet with charisma to spare, she seemed destined for the A-list until scandal and rumor dragged her down. Payton's whirlwind romances, most infamously her love triangle with actors Tom Neal and Franchot Tone, made juicy tabloid fodder. Whispers of nymphomania followed her everywhere. Affairs with producers, backlot trysts, and insatiable cravings that supposedly wrecked her career. But the truth was far grimmer. Behind the headlines were abusive relationships, substance abuse, and a system eager to exploit her pain. Studios distanced themselves, with publicists painting Payton as a cautionary tale. The more her personal life unraveled, the more the press feasted, gleefully chronicling her every misstep. Unlike male stars for whom a wild reputation could spell longevity, for Barbara it meant total exile. She ended her days penniless, a ghost of the ingenue she'd once been. In the end, Payton was destroyed less by her own appetites and more by an industry that craved her destruction. Her tragedy was a warning. In Hollywood, a woman's sexuality was currency until the day it was used against her. Hedi Lamar. Hedi Lamar's beauty was so blinding, it was easy for Hollywood to forget the mind behind the face. After her breakout in the scandalous European film Ecstasy, Lamar was dogged by stories of forbidden pleasures and an uncontrollable desire. Studio bosses cast her as the exotic temptress, and columnists speculated endlessly about her private life, affairs with actors, tycoons, and even European royalty. The label of nymphomaniac became shorthand for untamable woman, a way to explain her independence and keep her in check. Yet while the world obsessed over her bedroom, Lamar was quietly revolutionizing technology, co-inventing frequency-hopping signals that laid the groundwork for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Still, she was rarely taken seriously. The myth always overshadowed the achievement. Lamar herself later admitted, "Any girl can be glamorous. All you have to do is stand still and look stupid." The tragedy is that, while Hollywood relished the rumors, it missed the true story. Hedi Lamar was a woman who broke every mold, on screen, in the lab, and in life. The nymphomaniac myth was Hollywood's way of keeping genius in a gilded cage. Joan Crawford. Few stars embodied both power and vulnerability like Joan Crawford. Her climb from poverty to Oscar winner was legendary, but so were the whispers that haunted her ascent. Crawford's ambition, coupled with her beauty, attracted relentless scrutiny. The rumor mill spun tales of countless lovers, studio bosses, directors, actors, and, whispered even more quietly, other women. Nymphomaniac became the go-to slur for anyone trying to explain away her relentless drive or cut her down to size. MGM and Warner Brothers both worked to craft her public persona, strong, maternal, and just a little dangerous. But when career setbacks hit, the old rumors came roaring back, with columnists questioning her fitness as both actress and mother. Crawford, however, fought back, controlling interviews, fiercely managing her image, and outlasting nearly all her rivals. Yet the rumors never fully died. They resurfaced in tell-alls, tabloid exposés, and even in her daughter's infamous memoir. Today it's clear, Crawford's true sin was refusing to stay in her place. Hollywood called it nymphomania. History calls it ambition with teeth. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner was the living, breathing embodiment of old Hollywood glamour, fierce, flawed, and undeniably magnetic. The press branded her a love goddess and then hounded her for it, inventing and inflating tales of endless affairs and nights of wild abandon. Her relationships, especially her tempestuous marriage to Frank Sinatra, became tabloid obsession, and the nymphomaniac rumors multiplied with each new headline. Studios saw her allure as both asset and liability. They cashed in on her sex appeal while secretly fretting over her reputation. But Gardner refused to play victim. She once famously declared, "I either write the script or I get written out." The harder Hollywood tried to box her in, the more she pushed back, living her life on her own terms, even if it meant scandal and exile. Later in life, Ava dismissed the stories with a laugh, pointing out the double standard that made male stars into romantics and women into cautionary tales. In the end, the legend of Ava Gardner's desire said less about her and more about a town obsessed with policing pleasure. Louise Brooks. Louise Brooks was the original rebel of silent cinema, a woman whose independence was legendary, whose sharp wit matched her dark bob. From the start, Brooks refused to play Hollywood's game. She turned down roles, mocked studio bosses, and partied with abandon. Naturally, the industry struck back with rumors, stories of affairs with actors and actresses, sex parties, and a reputation as a self-destructive nymphomaniac. Brooks' openness about her desires, especially in an era of suffocating censorship, made her a target for moral crusaders and industry power brokers alike. When she walked away from Hollywood, her legend only grew, morphing from icon to cautionary tale. For years, gossip overshadowed her artistry. Only decades later did critics rediscover her films and recognize her as a pioneer. Brooks herself wrote, "Hollywood was a place where they pay you $1,000 for a kiss and 50 cents for your soul." The real scandal was never Brooks's appetite. It was Hollywood's need to punish women who wouldn't be tamed. Veronica Lake. With her peekaboo hair and icy allure, Veronica Lake became a symbol of 1940s cool, a look copied by millions. But success bred scrutiny, and as her career stumbled, the knives came out. Lake was dogged by rumors of sexual escapades, impulsive affairs, and insatiable urges that supposedly made her impossible to manage. Studio bosses, who once courted her every move, began blaming her personal life for every professional setback. Gossip columnists feasted on her divorces, financial woes, and emotional struggles, painting her as another Hollywood tragedy brought down by her own appetites. But the real story was more complicated. Lake battled undiagnosed mental health issues, alcoholism, and a cutthroat industry quick to discard difficult women. By her 40s, she was broke, living in obscurity, a cautionary tale for every star who dared to live off script. In truth, Lake's scandal was never about too much desire, but about a town that loved its legends, damaged and done. Hollywood's favorite game? Building legends and then breaking them, especially when desire was involved. Behind every nymphomaniac rumor, there's a story about power, shame, and the price women paid for living outside the lines. Which forgotten scandal made you question the legends? Hit subscribe and tell us in the comments. Are there stories the industry still doesn't want you to know? Because if Tinseltown taught us anything, it's that the truth always finds a way back into the spotlight.